The story begins. In the 1950s, Alice and Jack reside in a quintessential American town, spending their days socializing with friends, driving around, and cherishing their love for each other. One day, as Alice prepares for a gathering with friends, Jack heads to work alongside other white-collar employees. A female narrator introduces the 997th Point class, where exemplary wives like Alice receive lessons on maintaining beauty and grace. After the class, Alice returns home, engages in a conversation with her neighbor Bonnie, who is perpetually scolding her children, and proceeds to take down the dried laundry. A catchy tune persistently echoes in Alice's mind as she hums along, but her attention is abruptly captured by the sight of another neighbor, Margaret, standing in front of her house, seemingly lost in her own world. Alice commences cooking, but her suspicion is piqued when she encounters an empty egg upon squeezing it in her hand. In a seemingly perfect world, a woman's daily routine is disrupted by haunting memories symbolized by burnt meat. Despite her efforts to create a pleasant evening, her husband chooses to engage in other activities. The women relax by the pool, but Alice is distracted by a persistent song in her head. She mindlessly traces her finger along a model of the town before being picked up by Bonnie for cocktails served by her children. While the men engage in trivial discussions, a signal sounds, and Shelley welcomes new residents, praising her husband Frank for creating an extraordinary new world. However, Margaret interrupts, asserting that she and her husband shouldn't be there, leading to a tense situation as Alice's husband whisks her away and Frank apologizes to the guests. Despite facing challenges in pursuing their dreams and confronting chaos, a couple remains determined to make a positive impact on the world. During a gathering, guests express their happiness and unity as one big family. The men thank their wives for their unwavering support, acknowledging their crucial role as pillars of strength. Amidst the festivities, Alice embarks on a search for her husband, Jack, but instead encounters Margaret, who confides in her about her recurring nightmares and inability to attend the event. Alice's husband swiftly intervenes, shielding her from the distressing conversation. Later, in a moment of intimacy, Jack and Alice share a passionate kiss, finding solace in each other's arms. However, their romantic interlude is interrupted when Alice catches a glimpse of Frank, who watches them with a knowing smile. As the women gather in a shopping center, they engage in discussions about their seemingly perfect lives, while Alice feels a pang of sympathy for her troubled neighbor, Margaret. Bonnie believes she caused her own misfortune by taking her son alone into the desert. While she was found, her son remains missing. The men's activities are unknown, but rumors suggest they are involved in weapons manufacturing. Bonnie asserts that women also contribute by providing comfort at night. Alice experiences a nightmare, but proceeds with her daily routine, seeing her husband off to work and doing household chores. During a trolley bus ride, she becomes the sole passenger and expresses a desire to simply enjoy the ride. Suddenly, she witnesses a plane crash into the mountains. Despite her attempts to alert the driver and seek help for the victims, he remains focused on his route. Determined to assist, Alice jumps off the trolley bus and embarks on a challenging journey through the desert. She eventually reaches a road and ascends a tall mountain, where she encounters a peculiar dome-like structure at the summit. Approaching a mirrored glass, Alice loses consciousness and finds herself surrounded by dancing women and a commanding male voice. Regaining consciousness in her bed, she discovers that she had been asleep when her husband Jack arrived home from work and had returned on the trolley bus. Despite her confusion, Jack appears oblivious to her experience. Determined to dismiss it as a dream, Alice resumes her daily routine. But the following morning, she encounters a moving window glass that presses her against the wall, leaving her gasping for air. The phone rings and Alice hears Margaret's voice urging her to escape. Alice sees herself and her friends dancing, but Margaret suddenly appears in the mirror, banging her head against it. Alice screams and wakes up, rushing home to find Margaret on her roof. Margaret cuts her own throat and falls, leaving Alice horrified. Employees arrive and carry away Margaret's body. Alice tries to explain to Jack, but he doesn't believe her, claiming Margaret is in the hospital with a self-inflicted cut while washing windows. Alice feels guilty for not helping Margaret and asks Jack about his secretive project, but he refuses to discuss it, asking her to stop her hysterics. Alice, a resident of the town, witnesses an advertisement about her town at night and feels trapped and unable to escape. The next morning, while cooking, she impulsively wraps her head with cling film in an attempt to bring herself to her senses. But even the resulting suffocation doesn't help, and she tears off the film. A doctor arrives and assures Alice that her neighbor, Margaret, who fell, is suffering from nervous strain. Despite Alice's insistence that Margaret slit her own throat, the doctor suggests prescribing pills, but Jack, Margaret's husband, refuses, confident that they can cope. The doctor assures them that Margaret will recover and return home soon. As the doctor leaves, he forgets his briefcase, and Alice manages to retrieve a folder containing Margaret's personal file, but the text is smeared and unreadable. Alice, an alcoholic, hallucinates dancing women and finds herself in a bathroom. Her husband, Jack, is upset about being late and brings her a dress. He suggests they have a child and they anticipate a pleasant evening. At a restaurant filled with townspeople, Alice witnesses a performance by a blonde woman and sees visions of women in a circle and Margaret committing suicide. Feeling unwell, Alice goes to the bathroom and encounters a vision of an unemployed Jack. Her friend Bonnie finds her in a state of confusion and accuses her of jeopardizing Jack's career by behaving like Margaret. Upon returning to the hall, Alice observes Jack's triumph and controls her emotions. The next morning, Jack reminds her of the guests arriving in the evening, emphasizing the need to express gratitude to Frank. Alice greets the guests with a smile, maintaining the illusion of perfection. While Alice is busy preparing appetizers, her husband meets Frank. Unexpectedly, Frank initiates a conversation with Alice in the kitchen, expressing regret that Bonnie and Margaret didn't believe her. He reveals that he has been waiting for someone to challenge him. As the guests settle at the table, Alice takes the host's seat and Jack sits beside her. Amidst trivial conversation, Alice raises a peculiar observation about the women in town, all originating from one or two states and sharing similar vacation spots. Despite Jack's attempts to divert the conversation, Alice persists, suggesting that these women's stories are fabricated and controlled, occasionally revealing glimpses of forbidden memories. Frank confronts a woman about her nervous breakdown and reveals that she broke the rules by revealing herself to him in his bedroom. Alice is shocked by the lie, but Jack believes Frank and leaves with him, despite the woman's attempt to appeal to the guest's common sense. Shelley defends her husband, and the guests leave, disappointing Frank. Jack and Alice leave the house together, and as her husband apologizes, employees pull her away into the darkness. Dr. Alice, an exhausted surgeon, returns home after a 30-hour surgery to find her unemployed husband unprepared for her arrival and lacking basic necessities like dinner and hot water. Despite her fatigue, she denies her husband intimacy, leaving him to listen to an advertisement for a new simulation. The next day, Alice is greeted by her enthusiastic friend Bonnie and reunites with her children, oblivious to Bonnie's concern. While Alice engages in household chores, dancing and swimming, her husband Jack heads to work. As Jack walks through the dark city, his physical attributes are described, highlighting his suitability for the Victory Project with Alice. His role involves maintaining his wife's vital functions. Alice finds herself restrained in bed, cared for by Jack, who exits the simulation daily to afford her care. The man lying next to her, humming a familiar song, reveals that he has deprived her of real life to save her from constant work. Frank created this simulated world for them to live as they please, working tirelessly to support it. Despite her contentment, Alice worries about the others, realizing they are essentially hostages. When Jack hugs her, she strikes him, leading to his death. Bonnie discovers Jack's body and reports it to Frank, confessing her knowledge of the simulation. Bonnie chose this life to be with her children, who are alive here, while other women remain unaware. Alice understands the urgency to escape before they kill her. A woman, Alice, drives into the desert pursued by employees of a mysterious organization. Despite causing a collision that results in a doctor's death, her pursuers relentlessly chase her. Frank, the leader of the organization, orders Alice's capture at all costs. However, Shelley, one of the employees, stabs Frank, jeopardizing their mission. Alice continues her escape towards a mountain, but her car stalls near the summit, forcing her to proceed on foot. As she approaches the enigmatic dome, her pursuers close in on her. In a moment of desperation, Alice feels her husband's hands on her shoulders, pleading with her not to leave him. Amidst visions of an ideal life within a simulation called victory, Alice grapples with the complexities of her situation, questioning whether it is possible to truly make someone happy against their will. Please subscribe to support us. Thank you for watching.